So about a year ago, I was in New York traveling with my family, and we came across this countdown display. It's called the climate clock. And my children who were with me at that time asked me, "Dad, what does that clock mean?" And to put it in simple terms, when this clock runs out, it is very likely the pace of global warming will exceed 1.5 degrees with devastating effects to mankind and our planet. That's a very scary thought. And I thought it was just me, but a few days later, my eldest son comes up to me and says, seeing that clock really depressed me. And you know what? It really depressed me too. Because this is the world we live in today. Environmental disasters caused by climate change have become the norm. From raging fires to blistering snow, to droughts that parch, to storms that flood, this is the world we live in today. And that's just the environment. Imagine if we talk about war, poverty, inequality, the host of other issues that the world is grappling with. It's very easy, I guess, for us to feel like this. This little hero in this anime called The Seven Deadly Sins. He feels beaten, overwhelmed, hopeless. And our enemy really is that hopelessness, right? Because hopelessness leads to paralysis. And if we surrender to this enemy, we can no longer take the drastic action needed for us to save our planet. Save this planet we call home. If that happens, we fail ourselves, we fail future generations. But while these problems and challenges may be difficult, like Melodias here, the hero in this anime, we can overcome them. We can survive, we can surpass these obstacles before us. Because today is not about paralysis, it is about hope. But what gives us hope, or what gives me hope, right? I think for me, it's about the power of advocacy. And my story of advocacy starts back in 2006. I took a master's in real estate development at Columbia University in New York. And after I graduated, I came home, and my father tells me, and he's here in the audience today, tells me, "Raymond, I spent so much on your education to send you to New York, send you to school. It's a big investment. So what are you going to bring back to the family business now that you're home in the Philippines?" And it didn't take me a lot of time. I thought about it and said, I think I want to bring back this idea of sustainability. And why is that? Because I realized when we were in my program that our professor said, "Do you realize that every real estate developer creates buildings that last 50, 75, 100 years old? Throughout the life of that building, you are impacting your environment, your community, your city where you are developing. In fact, if you look at greenhouse gas emissions, which people always talk about, 40% comes from the real estate and construction industry." And coming home to our family business, I realized I am part of that 40%. Our family is part of this 40% problem. If we don't change the way we do our business, we are actively contributing to the degradation of our planet. So luckily, my father listened to me and fully supported me and said, "Raymond, let's do this. Let's embrace sustainability." At a time when sustainability was not popular, was not easy, was not on the agenda, let's go ahead and make this a key pillar of our company, a key part of our DNA. The challenge, though, was being a fresh, graduate student was I was coming home and I didn't really know that much about sustainability, especially the real estate context. I learned a little bit about it in school, but I was by no means an expert. So by chance, I met a couple of very passionate people locally who also believed in transitioning our real estate industry towards sustainability. We gathered together and we said, how do we best push sustainability in the real estate sector? We have to push green buildings. And so in 2007, together with a couple of these other passionate people, we co-founded the Philippine Green Building Council. The picture you see here today is a very special moment for me. 10 years after we founded the Philippine Green Building Council in Stockholm in Sweden during the World Green Building Congress, we received our established member certificate from the World Green Building Council. This is architect Chris and Anna, who have been my longtime friends and colleagues at the Philippine Green Building Council. And we had worked very hard to become an established member of the World Green Building Council, one of the very few developing countries to be able to achieve that. Fast forward many, many years, we're very proud to say that our development company, NEO, who is an office owner, developer, and manager in BGC, is now one of the leading sustainable real estate companies in the world. We were the first company to achieve the EDGE Net Zero Carbon certification for a portfolio of buildings. While our original target of net zero was 2025, we became a net zero company in 2021, 4 years ahead of schedule. I'm also the chairman of the Philippine Green Building Council today. We have registered over 3.7 million square meters of buildings and about 17 million square meters of area under districts for the BERDE rating tool. That's the Building for Ecologically Responsive Design Excellence, or our national green building rating tool. Aside from the Philippine Green Building Council, I'm also active in many other organizations. Organizations dedicated to leadership, such as the Young Presidents Organization and the Entrepreneurs Organization, other organizations dedicated to the environment like the Worldwide Fund for Nature, and also other organizations like the Urban Land Institute, which is focused on responsible real estate development. And so this journey of advocacy for me was a very exciting one, starting off, with sort of this idea of greening real estate, and now over the years, cascading and becoming something much more powerful and much more exciting. But what have I learned along this journey? What's the key learning for me? The key learning for me is that if we want to create a better world for us and for future generations, each one of us needs a personal advocacy. That's not your seatmate, that's not your cousin, that's not the government, that's not someone else. That means each one of you in this room needs to embrace an issue, identify an issue, and dedicate yourself to trying to address that issue. Very many people do not have any personal advocacy. And yet, that for me has been the key learning. If each one of us can start to discover that personal advocacy, the amount of difference we can make the world is substantial. However, the problems and the issues we are trying to overcome are really large. These are not simple issues or situations that individuals can just look at and say, I can solve that, right? So, when we think about trying to make that difference, trying to make that impact, one of the things I struggled with as very big problem, I'm a very small person or individual, right? And the typical constraint that we all experience in trying to make that big impact is every person has two precious resources, time and energy. Doesn't matter if you're the president of a country or you are a young kid in school, these are your two very precious resources, time and energy. And you have limited amounts of those, right? In fact, when I invite people to join me on this journey of advocacy, some of the most common questions I get are, I don't have time, or I don't have energy, or even worse, I don't have time, I don't have any energy. So, what happens? How do we overcome this roadblock that limits the impact each one of us can make if we have finite time and energy? And so, I'd like to offer some suggestions on how we can overcome that roadblock. And the first is, the better you spend your time today, the more time you release for yourself in the future. Yes, time is finite. But what you choose to spend your time on has a direct impact on what you are spending your time on in the future, right? Think of it this way. How many of you have traveled? I'm sure many of you have traveled. If you're taking a tour of a new city, right? The planning, preparation, and prioritization that you do before your trip allows you to maximize your time and enjoyment during the trip, right? If you don't spend any of that upfront time and just go on that trip, you will end up wasting so much time. So, if you spend that time upfront, it releases time for you later, right? Second, the more energy you give the right people and engagements, the more energy you will receive. Unlike time, which cannot be created, unfortunately, energy is different. I have learned the hard way that there are energy vampires, right? People who suck the energy out of you. How many of you know people like that? When you spend time with them, you get so tired. They suck energy out of you. You want to spend as little time as possible with people like that. You don't want to work with them, right? On the other hand, there are people who radiate energy. There are people that the more energy you give them, the more energy you receive. Those are the people you want to work with. The people who radiate energy rather than those who suck it up. But if you ask me, what is the very best way to spend your time and receive more energy? It's by leveraging organizations. Leveraging organizations. So one of the things I learned is, again, I by myself, I'm limited by the constraints of time and energy. But if I'm able to take my personal advocacy, align myself with organizations that share the same advocacy, what happens? I am now able to amplify myself and my efforts. I'm now able to break away from the traditional constraints of time and energy, right? By working together in organizations, we are able to unlock so much more impact. We're able to deepen our impact, we're able to widen it. So much more than if you were just working by yourself. So today, I'm part of 7 different organizations or advocacies. I mentioned them earlier, right? Some organizations are for my advocacy on leadership, some are for the environment, some are for real estate. And I know 7 is a lot. I don't expect many of you to go out and join 7 organizations, but I have realized that by working with and for these organizations, your ability to create that wider and deeper impact is really tremendous. If you haven't found a personal advocacy, right? Some of you might be thinking, where do I start? Where do I begin? I think you just have to look around you. In your school, in your church, in your community, even in your company. If you start to open your eyes and really look, you will see that so many people are working across so many advocacies. Here in the Philippines, we have a very, very active private sector that really goes out there and really tries to solve some of these issues, challenges, and problems. You don't have to go very far. If you haven't chosen a personal advocacy, look at some of these groups and see if you might want to join them, experience them, see what they're doing, and see if they have an advocacy that resonates with you. Something that touches you, that makes you feel deep down inside that you want to dedicate more of yourself to this. Because the world and our country needs your time and energy now more than ever. My name is Raymond Rufino. I'm an advocate for sustainability and leadership. And my hope today is that I've inspired and challenged some of you, if not all of you, to identify a cause, an issue, or a problem that you would like to help out with and commit to that as your personal advocacy. Then, leverage organizations so that you can make significant impact beyond just yourself but to the larger community and country of which we are a part. Because each of us can make a difference, but together we can save the world. Thank you.